together. You have to draw water from the well and heat up this water. But they're two different things, really. You can do the same thing, but it's two different concepts. An auspicious time for healing is in the month of Iyar. Iyar is an acronym, Ani Hashem Rifecha. I am your healer. As we mentioned, we quoted earlier from Arich, that Arich is Ani Hashem Rifecha. The Rebbe would tell many people, when people turn to the Rebbe for advice, for blessing, in regards to when it was a month of Iyar, the Rebbe would write the abbreviation of Iyar. Ani Hashem Rifecha, I'm your cure. The question is, Ani Hashem Rifecha is 3 words. Why does Iyar have 2 letters, 2 yuds? It has 2 yuds, so how does it fit? It's a very interesting way the Rebbe explains it. When you take the Almighty's name, there's a way of writing it, there's a way of pronouncing it. When you write it, it starts with a yud. When you pronounce it with the 4 letters, the Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud. So it concludes with a yud. So these are the 2 yud. These are basically the 2 yud of Iyar. It starts with a yud, the 4-letter word Yud Kei Vav Kei. It ends, Adna ends with a yud, with the way we pronounce it. And that's why you'll see in many Sidurim, in prayer books, instead of writing Hashem, the Almighty's name, it just has 2 yuds. The reason that Iyar is a time of remedy is because it's a time of renewal, a refreshing, a time that nature is being renewed, everything is starting to blossom again, all the animal world feels renewed, and therefore a person also feels renewed then. And it's an auspicious time. In other Svarim it's mentioned, in some Svarim it's mentioned that Oder is also an acronym for Ani Hashem Rifecha. Very direct. Aleph, Dalet, Reish. Dalet relates to the Almighty's 4-letter name, so instead of writing His name, we write Dalet. Aleph, Dalet, Reish. So the question is, what's the difference this time or that time? A person needs a medication, he's not going to wait with a cold till who knows when. So the answer is, it's a very interesting inyan. This is something that's helpful also for patients. Because these times are more auspicious, so sometimes a doctor may suggest a person, in the long run, take care of it. But it's not a today or tomorrow issue. So that's when a person has a choice to choose an auspicious time. Another interesting inyan that the Rebbe spoke halachically, an inyan that the Rebbe addressed in the year that the Rebbe had a heart condition then, in 1978, a very interesting issue. That when a person needs surgery, not an emergency surgery, but a surgery that the person chooses, the Rebbe says it is best, halachically speaking, and professionally speaking, not to do it over the weekend. The Rebbe says, because when you're dealing with the weekend, there are 2 issues here at hand. One is, the first 3 days is a crisis. And therefore, Shabbos, you will need people working around you and doing work for you Shabbos. And some of these people are Jewish. And then the Rebbe says, professionally speaking, you don't have the experts in the hospital over the weekend. So therefore the Rebbe says, if to do anything, it's better to avoid it, to do it towards the beginning of the week, near the beginning of the week, which then you stay out of those the weekend dramas. And as the Rebbe once referred to the hospital, the Rebbe says that I don't call it a hospital, a beis hachoilim, a place of sick people, but beis hareifim, a place of doctors. The Rebbe says the aim is that only doctors should be there, but not patients. There was someone that once came to the Rebbe on a Shabbos and was announcing that a certain person needs a refuah, he needs a remedy. And it was those years that over the weekend the hospital was closed. It was then the hospital was, they had set up different times, in the 1950s. So the Rebbe said then, the hospital is closed. You don't have a choice. You have to be well, the hospital is closed. And as the Rebbe once said it, the Rebbe says, what did he base it on? The previous Rebbe was once on the boat coming from Israel to the United States in 1929. He got the news about the pogrom in Hebron, that took place in 1929, and he got sick. He started to suffer a kidney stone attack. Great pain. He was suffering tremendously. There was a doctor on the boat, and he attended the previous Rebbe. Then he went over to the previous Rebbe and he says, I want to ask pardon. I want to ask forgiveness. I feel that I was here and that's why you got sick. In other words, the doctor was in the audience. He says, I feel that you because I was here, you got sick. The Rebbe doesn't continue what the previous Rebbe answered. But the Rebbe said, based on that, the Rebbe said to someone, the hospital is closed, there's no choice. So this is basically why the Rebbe referred to the hospital, Beis HaReifim, a place where only doctors should be, but not sick people. A person doesn't belong there. Now, the auspicious places where remedy is mentioned, where it's the auspicious place for remedy where the Talmud speaks about, one of them is Tveria. Tveria, the lake of Tveria, Tiberias, is the place where the well of Miriam is. The Talmud discusses the hot water of Tveria, that it takes out the cough of the person. Different things that are mentioned in the Talmud, and that is mentioned in the tractate of Nazir. A person is permitted to wash in the water there of Tveria. And together with that, a person has to take in consideration what is about Shabbos. Is that considered a remedy or not? Then there's another place, Nahar Pros, the Persian Gulf. Persian Gulf, the Nahar Pros. It says a very interesting medrash, that all the rivers were asking Pros, the Euphrates, what is the reason that we don't hear your voice? We don't hear your sound, like we hear others. So Pros tells them, the Euphrates answers, there's no need for me to sound off my voice, because the qualities and things that my water have, that are, they themselves tell and publicize, announce what I have, the good things that I have, and everybody that drinks from my water gets cured. So this is basically another area in the world where the Talmud takes that in consideration, places where a person can get cured. Okay, to conclude with interesting concepts, how the Rebbe would derive lessons in medicine and what they mean in the service to the Almighty, in the service to the Creator. An interesting, just to mention something interesting, an interesting story, what it means, going according to Torah, passing the verdict according to Torah. There was a certain person, a very big chassid of the Tzemach Tzedek, that got sick. And the Tzemach Tzedek told him, go to Israel. And he got well. Later they asked the Tzemach Tzedek, what does this mean? Tzemach Tzedek said like this, the illness that this person had, if it isn't an animal, according to the Ramah, it's called treif. The animal cannot live from that. But the Beis Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Kari, holds that he could live with it. Since Rabbi Yosef Kari lived in Israel, you go there, and you're going to be in good condition. And that's what happened. He became well. There were a group of soldiers, veterans, that came to the Rebbe in 1976. I witnessed this. And this was in the 26th of Av, summer. It was a surprise, besides the ones that needed to know. But we as students, we were always there, so we didn't miss it.
Americans or Israelis?
Israelis. Came with wheelchairs. It's last few years it was more publicized in the details. And they were wheeled into the shul downstairs in 770. The Rebbe came in 3 o'clock or whatever it was in the afternoon at approximately that time, spoke to them in Hebrew, and then the Rebbe walked over to each one, shook his hand and gave him $1. The Shabbos after that, the Rebbe actually explained what he did. The date, I see here the date in front of me, was the 23rd of Av. The Rebbe said like this, there's a saying in the Talmud that says that there was someone, this is in the tractate of Brachas, that someone was very sick and somebody came to visit him. And they asked him, do you really want this torture? do you really want to suffer? He said, no. I don't want them, I don't want their reward. So he says, give me your hand. He gave him his hand, and it got him well. He became well. So the Rebbe says this is the reason that he went over to each one to shake their hands. This was the idea, as the Talmud says, to help a person get well. And the Rebbe says shaking a hand is very interesting because the hand in Hebrew means yad. Why is yad called yad, the hand? Yad is the numerical value of 14. There's 14 joints in the hand. All that. When two hands shake each other, there's 28. 28, the numerical value is koyach, energy. And that's why the Rebbe shook the person's hand, their hands, one by one. The Rebbe walked over to each one and gave everyone thank you. And then the Rebbe returned to his room. Okay, now discussing just briefly, different interesting lessons that the Rebbe derived from new discoveries in medicine. One of the things was, in 1962, the shock treatment. The Rebbe says, what does the shock treatment do? That when they want to reveal the person, to take him out of his ordinary daily life pattern, and then they know who he really is. So there's the shock treatment. So the Rebbe says, what does this basically mean? Touching the core of a person's soul. This is basically shock treatment on a level of Hasidus, on a mystical understanding. Shock treatment is basically on the touching the core of the person, shaking up the person completely, and really seeing what his real essence is. The Rebbe says forgetfulness. The Rebbe says that the doctors, this is in 1976, the doctors discovered that something that a person doesn't like, they forget quickly. The Rebbe says, Taylor already speaks about it a long time ago. The Rebbe doesn't mention here where, but basically it's in Hilchos Talmud Torah as an example for that. That the one way of forgetting is when a person does not review it and doesn't have it in his mind. So this is a way of, or in today's world, it's called putting it on the back burner. Sometimes the back burner means taking it off the gas range completely, and this means it falls out of mind. Once it's removed from the mind, it doesn't exist anymore in the person's world. Another interesting idea in regards to health and health of the heart is that when the whole body is working in unison, and then the circulation can get everywhere, the heart is healthy. And the heart is able to continue catering to the body. But if there's any obstacles anywhere, so this minimizes the circulation and creates a problem. So the same thing is also in regards to the Shekhinah. The Shekhinah is compared to the heart. The Shekhinah is the mother of the whole Jewish nation, the source of all the souls, and it's compared to the heart. When the whole Jewish nation is in unity, in unison as one, so then the heart is healthy. If there is separation, there's conflict, so this is when the temple